Welcome back to Nexus Tech. It is November 2025, and it feels like the right time to do a State of the Union for the entire Linux ecosystem. We're going to take a look at the whole landscape, from the massive data centers running our world to the desktops we use every day, and even the handhelds we game on. A lot is shifting right now, so let's break down where Linux really stands. So, what's the big question? It's really, where is all of this heading? Because right now, the ecosystem is being pulled in three very distinct, very powerful directions all at once. Today, we're going to dive into each one of them. The absolute fortress that is Enterprise Linux, the quiet revolution happening on the desktop, and of course, the explosion in the world of gaming.
First up, we're going to look at the enterprise. This is where Linux is, without a doubt, the undisputed king. It's consolidating its power, but it's also facing some brand new, really serious threats.
Then, we'll switch gears and talk about the desktop, which is right in the middle of a once-in-a-generation rebuild of its entire foundation. It's a huge deal.
And finally, we're going to get to the most explosive story of them all, gaming. I mean, Linux hasn't just joined the conversation here, it's actually starting to change the rules of the game.
Okay, let's start with the enterprise. This is the bedrock, right? It's what the modern internet is built on. And right now, it's a story of incredible power meeting some incredible peril.
On the power side of things, we've got the new SUSE Linux Enterprise Server 16. Now, yeah, the updated kernel and libraries are great, they give it a rock-solid foundation, but the real story here is how it's looking to the future. We're seeing preview support for something called the Model Context Protocol, which is basically a new standard designed to make plugging in AI and large language models way more efficient. You combine that with a focus on digital sovereignty for strict European compliance, and, well, you've got a platform that's not just mature, it's incredibly forward-looking.
But here's the thing about being on top. It means you're a bigger target than ever. For every step forward in features, it feels like a new threat is just waiting around the corner. And just this past week, a major vulnerability popped up that affects the entire world of containers.
So 3 critical vulnerabilities were just found in runc. And if you don't know, runc is the foundational engine used by Docker, Kubernetes, pretty much all modern container technology. The crucial point here is that they all allow for what's called container escape. Think of it like this. A container is supposed to be a secure, isolated room. Well, an escape vulnerability is like finding a hidden key that lets an attacker break out of that room and get access to the entire building, the underlying server itself. With a severity score of 7.3, this is a major threat to cloud infrastructure everywhere.
Now, the good news is that fixes are out, and the advice on how to mitigate this is crystal clear. Number 1, update runc to the patch versions immediately. System admins, this is your top priority right now. Number 2, for an extra layer of defense, enable user namespaces. And third, and this is a big one, if your workflow allows for it, use rootless containers. Running things without admin privileges by default is one of the single best ways to minimize the damage an attacker can do.
Okay, so let's shift gears. We're moving from the server room to the desktop, where a quiet but absolutely monumental transition is finally reaching its endgame.
For decades, the Linux desktop has been powered by a display server called X11. It's been an absolute workhorse, but let's be honest, it's ancient. It's carrying decades of legacy code and security models that just don't make sense anymore. Wayland is its replacement. It's built from scratch to be more secure and more efficient. And this chart just brilliantly shows the difference in philosophy. Wayland is designed for how we use computers today, giving you smoother visuals and a much simpler, more robust architecture.
And this isn't some abstract idea we're talking about. It is happening right now. The major players are all moving together. Ubuntu 25.10 just shipped its main edition without an Xorg session. Gone. Fedora is putting its Wayland-first KDE Plasma desktop on the same level as its flagship GNOME release. The momentum here is just undeniable.
In fact, for the GNOME desktop, we actually have a clear timeline for the end of the X11 era. The code to remove the native X11 session was literally just finalized this month. By the time GNOME 50 is released in March of 2026, the transition is going to be complete. After 30 years, a brand new foundation for the Linux desktop has been laid. It's huge.
And that brings us to our final, and maybe most surprising chapter, gaming. I mean, for years, Linux gaming was this niche thing for enthusiasts. But something fundamental has changed, and the ecosystem just hit a milestone that a lot of people thought was pretty much impossible.
The momentum has just been building and building. Valve's Proton compatibility layer gets better with every single update, bringing more and more Windows games over.
The Steam Deck keeps getting these crucial quality of life updates, and on the driver front, even as AMD winds down support for older cards on Windows, the open source community drivers on Linux just keep them performing beautifully.
It's this constant stream of good news. But it all comes down to one really crucial question. With all this progress, is it actually moving the needle? Is anyone really choosing to game on Linux? Yes, they are. For the first time ever in the history of the Steam Hardware Survey, Linux has officially crossed the 3% market share threshold. Now I know, 3.05% might not sound like a lot, but for an ecosystem that hovered around 1% for over a decade, this is absolutely explosive growth. This is the tangible result of the Steam Deck's success and years of foundational work paying off.
So what does that 3% actually look like? Well, no surprise, Valve's SteamOS is leading the charge, powering over a quarter of all Linux gamers. But what's really interesting to me is the strong showing for traditional distributions like Arch, Mint, and Ubuntu. This proves the growth isn't just happening on handhelds, it's bringing a whole new wave of users to the Linux desktop itself.
You know, tracking these critical trends is exactly what we do here at Nexus Tech. So to make sure you don't miss our next deep dive, do us a favor and be sure to subscribe to the channel. It really helps us stay up to date.
So let's tie all of this together. What's the big picture here? What is the state of Linux in late 2025?
What we're really seeing is an ecosystem that's just firing on all cylinders. The enterprise space is more powerful and more critical than it's ever been, even as it's hardening itself against new threats. The desktop is finishing this massive technological migration to secure its own future for the next decade. And gaming has transformed from a hobbyist niche into a genuine engine for growth, bringing more users into the ecosystem than ever before.
Which, leaves us with one last really fascinating question. For years, Linux conquered the server. Now it seems like it's finally cracking the code on gaming. So with this newfound momentum and a user base that's growing faster than ever, what new frontiers will the Linux ecosystem conquer next?